So welcome, Kerry. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Kerry Nicholas and I live in Warburton. I've got one beehive and I've had that beehive for coming up to 5 years. So I got in spring 5 years ago.
So what was it that attracted you into beekeeping?
Look, I think I wanted a hobby. We don't have animals, we don't have cats or dogs. So I wanted something that I could delve into and explore. It's something that I didn't know very much about, although I'd had a little taste in my family. So enough to know that it was something you could probably do. If my brothers could do it, I could probably do it. So we were on a rural property. Seemed like a good thing to do.
Can you tell us a bit more about the family?
I'm one of a large family, 11, 8 of whom were brothers. My father was very keen that we had hobbies and expanding the hobby into what other realms it might go into. So he suggested that the boys, a couple of the boys, could have a beehive in the backyard of our property at Diamond Creek. Dad didn't know anything about beehives ever, I don't think, from beginning to end, but he was keen that the boys would learn, and they did, a couple of them. And there were spin-offs like a family magazine newsletter and shares. You could buy shares in the beehive. I don't think there was much return, but there was interest and people gained confidence and knew about it. And then it just sort of died out to much later in life when 3 of my brothers actually did get hives. One in Ballarat, one living in Sydney, and one living in Western Australia. So it's a family activity in a sense, you know, out of that 4 of us have got a bit of knowledge and can share it and compare. And I can tell you Perth's the place to have bees if you want honey.
So what advice would you give to someone just getting into bees?
Well, if you're a bookie person, I'd buy the book by Bob.
Bob's Beekeeping.
Bob's Beekeeping, and that's great for Melbourne because it's so locally based. But if you like to learn from other people, join a bee group. That's the way, and just suss it all out. You know, what are these people like? Are they people you like? How much are they good at telling beginners? They take in beginners rather than just people who are fairly well along the way. Find out if you've got neighbours with bees. Yes, I think they're probably the best ways. The club and reading up a bit. And probably these days you could go on YouTubes and the internet and find plenty of things too. But for local stuff, you want to get your bee group on board.
So what have you found to be the biggest challenges?
Well, we don't have the weather that perhaps I would have liked to have, in that of the 4 years that I've had harvests, or could have had harvests, probably 2 only have I had an ability to harvest and take honey from the bees to the extent that they still had enough left over winter. So I haven't had that very well. And the couple of years that we've had harvests, they've been fairly small harvests. Good, interesting to go through the processes of extracting the honey, looking at your honey, seeing what colour it is, all those sort of things are good. So you get involved in the whole process. But in terms of really keeping your family in honey, it'd be a bit notional. But I've only had 1 beehive. That's not typical. Often people will have 2 or more. And I had 1 because I really didn't think that I wanted to be too fussed about the weights of hives. And I felt 1 was enough for me.
So what is it that delights you about beekeeping?
Well, there's always something you can go and do. You can just go and sit down and watch them. And that's interesting. You can watch the flowers they're on around your garden. You can learn about what next technical thing you should be doing, whether that's getting feeding ready for them if it's a low time of the year. You can move into other areas, like in looking at what sort of foliage and greenery and trees and flowers and herbs you've got in your garden. So that's another whole area of interest that you can develop. It's a hobby with lots of arms, yeah, and that's really great. Yeah,
it's always something new to learn, isn't it?
That's right. There is, yeah, yeah, and it can be as technical as you like. You know, some people weigh their hives, work out how much honey they've got inside them. Other people just like to watch the activity at the front door and take a educated guess. Yeah.
Absolutely. Something not on the script, but you know, you've been our secretary for 2 years now. Really since the start, since we started to form a committee. You were in there before we incorporated. So you're officially secretary for 2 years, but it's really been 3.
Yeah.
We're sad to be bidding you farewell from that role because of the leadership. But could you talk to us a little? Is there anything you would share about the experience of being on the committee?
Oh, it's been a great committee. I think often the things that you get into at the beginning are full of the enthusiasm and the energy that committees need, and you bring on board a disparate group of people who don't know each other, and that's great too. And you come on board for all sorts of different reasons, you know, because you can share your computer knowledge, or you're pretty good at admin, or you're really a hands-on person who's had the hives forever and knows a lot about them. So there are just so many other aspects to being on a committee than just what you give yourself. And it's been a pretty nice committee in that it's not burdensome in terms of meetings. I think we only meet, 3 times a year? 4 times a year as a committee, and we keep our speakers running monthly for our general meetings. And it's great too, being involved closely in a range of activities that suit your beekeeping community, whether it's knowledge in or activity in terms of making your own hives for the following year. There's help on hand. There's people who can get, well, that's not just limited, of course, to the committee, but perhaps as a committee member you have a special entree to other people's hives and energy and help at certain times, yeah. So, yeah, great experience. Really recommend it.
Kerry, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for all that you've given to our group.
Thank you, Luke, and the best of luck to all beekeepers.